Hello and welcome to Camp, the Catholic Audiobook in a Month podcast. My name is William Wilson, and today is day 25 of The Little Way of Spiritual Childhood by Father Gabriel Martin. I will be reading Chapter 9, Section 1, which corresponds to page 106 through 112 in the paperback. We'll be focusing on simplicity in the little way, of how everything is ordinary and happens in the simplest way. Now, here's something really amazing about St. Thérèse. So outwardly, she's known not to have had any remarkable events. So no huge, great miracles, such as something like levitation. But even more remarkable than that is that inwardly, she did not have any remarkable events either. So she had this simplicity which goes straight to God. And something that the reading is going to highlight is that God is both our end and our means. So this is a really powerful section. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. Chapter 9. Simplicity. Simplicity gives to childhood one of its most fascinating characteristics. Simplicity it is that impresses on the slightest movements of the little one, on its every word, on all its ways, that stamp of uprightness and candor which renders it so lovable in our eyes. To take away its simplicity from the child would be to take from the flower its perfume. So entrancing a virtue could not be wanting to the little child of the good God, and for this reason the soul that wishes to advance on the way of spiritual childhood ought to value simplicity very highly. She must banish from her mind, from her heart, and from her conduct all that savors of duplicity, and even all that appears in the slightest degree complex, and practice to the very letter, on every occasion, the counsel of Jesus to his apostles, "Be ye simple as doves." Saint Thérèse was a perfect model of this beautiful and lovable simplicity. And were we to say nothing of it, the sketch of her soul we give here, as well as the idea we ought to form for ourselves about her little way, would be altogether incomplete. Besides, this virtue is not one of those of which the acts are made only from time to time, as opportunities occur. Its practice is a thing of every day, and in some manner of every moment. Or, to speak more correctly, it consists less in distinct acts than in a certain manner of being, which is impressed on one's whole life, not only in external conduct, but even in the thoughts and the most interior sentiments of the soul. And that is what gives it such great importance. In the spirituality of Saint Thérèse, or like her, to speak more simply, as in her little doctrine, everything is ordinary. Everything happens in the very simplest way. The soul is borne towards God as the river is borne towards the sea. The river, following the incline, flows downwards. The soul, following its inclination, tends upwards. And as the river flows on, shut in between its banks, without seeking a way for itself outside, so in spiritual childhood, life passes away in God by following the course of events, and borne along by the very surroundings of life, because in everything that presents itself to be done or to be suffered, a little soul always finds a means of raising itself to God by love and by the practice of every virtue. Such was the life of little Thérèse. Outwardly, no remarkable events. Within, nothing extraordinary either. No visions, no raptures, no ecstasies, but the common way from every point of view, from the beginning to the end, the ordinary life in the obscurity of faith. This it is which makes of her, for a very large number of souls, a model so encouraging and so easy of imitation. For as she sang herself, "The number of little ones on earth is very great, and in my little way," she says again, "there are only quite ordinary things, All that I do, little souls must be able to do also. Let us follow her then once more in the luminous traces that she has left on her way. Nothing will be more capable of arousing our confidence and our fervor than to consider, at the close of this study, how simple was the way which raised her in so short a time to a high degree of perfection. Section 1. How Simplicity Goes Straight to God. It is the property of simplicity to go straight to its end. In the spiritual life, the end is God. To go straight to God is to have Him as the direct end of all our actions, and not to harass ourselves with any other care. For that we must forget creatures and not seek to please them. We must forget self, and in no way seek our own pleasure or personal advantage. For howsoever little a person is occupied with self or with creatures, he turns aside, he deviates from the straight line, he ceases to tend directly to God, he leaves simplicity behind. Our saint, as we have seen, had but one constant preoccupation: to please the good God. That is how she brought unity into her life, and it was an excellent way of being simple, for here unity and simplicity are all one. But God is love. Hence, to go to Him, she considered that there is no better means than love. And to the simplicity of the end, she joined the simplicity of the means. For in her eyes all were reduced to love. Still, that did not prevent her from having recourse to the practice of the other virtues, but she so enveloped and permeated them with love that she transformed them all into love, and she could say, "I know of one means only by which to arrive at perfection: love. Let us love, since our heart is made for nothing else." Thus, simplicity in the end, God alone. Simplicity in the means, love. And this love again, freed from everything that might complicate it and reduced to its simplest form, the love of a child for his father. Such is, as we remember, the foundation of the spirituality of Saint Thérèse. Now, simplicity of love brings with it simplicity of faith. For the child who loves never doubts the word of his father. If the virtue of faith, considered in its human element, is founded on the intellect and the will, the heart can also have a part in it, and when it intervenes, it simplifies and strengthens to a remarkable degree the acquiescence of these two powers. As for us, says St. John, we believe in love. But this word which solves every difficulty in the presence of the obscurities of faith, what else is it but a cry of loving confidence to the Father or to the friend that speaks to us? Such was the faith of Saint Thérèse, not only in the bright days when her soul gently expanded beneath the warm rays of the divine sun, but also in the most gloomy days of her great temptations against faith. She never ceased to believe because she never ceased to love him in whom faith told her to believe. The same love which rendered her faith so simple made her confidence also very simple. She trusted as she believed, because she loved, and in the full measure of her love. And from thence, too, came the wonderful simplicity of her abandonment. Thence, in fine, the relations so affectionate and simple which in all ways she maintained with her Father in heaven, notably in her prayer. Her manner of prayer had nothing in it complicated or strained. "I have not the courage," she said herself, "to force myself to seek beautiful prayers in books, not knowing which to choose. I act as children do who cannot read. I say quite simply to the good God what I want to tell him, and he always understands me. Nothing could be more touching, because nothing more beautiful in its simplicity, than the following scene which belongs to nearly the last hours of her life. It was the night but one before her death. Her infirmarian, on entering the infirmary, found her with her hands joined and her eyes raised towards heaven. "But what are you doing?" she asked. "You should try to sleep." "I cannot, dear sister. I suffer too much. Then I pray." "And what do you say to Jesus?" "I say nothing. I love him." Simple with God, she is simple even in the very distractions that assail her. Others would be troubled about them. She is content to accept all that for the love of the good God, even the most extravagant thoughts that come into her mind. Further still, she is simple in her manner of recommending to God those dear to her. If she had to enumerate the needs of each one in particular, she said, the days would be too short for doing so, and she would greatly fear forgetting something important. Besides, complicated methods are not for simple souls, and as she is one of these, Jesus himself inspired her with a very simple means. It consists in saying to him with the spouse in the Canticles, "Draw me, we will run after thee to the odor of thy ointments." For a soul could not run alone without drawing after her the souls whom she loves. This is a natural consequence of her attraction towards God. In this way, nothing can distract a soul whose one occupation is to love. Nothing can turn it away from its end. On the contrary, everything that might seem capable of turning it aside, such as the most importunate distractions and preoccupations of every kind, becomes new material for her love. Just as we see rivers, swollen by the waters which their tributaries bring, drawing along with themselves these waters without being delayed by them, and all that comes to them from left and right, from far and near, instead of slackening their course, only accelerates it. And when at last all these waters reach the sea, they have no longer any name but one, that of the river which bears them along. In the same way, the beauty of a life is evolved from its simplicity. When it is vowed wholly to love, this latter draws everything along in its train, and nothing resists it. Thoughts, works, pains, joys, preoccupations, everything is subject to the attraction of love. And just as the streams lose their names when mingled with the river, so at the contact of love, everything in life becomes love and is transformed into love. It is the triumph of charity and the blessed fruit of simplicity. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Tomorrow I will read Chapter 9, Section 2, on where and how simplicity is to be learned. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, share, and help us grow. Also, please check out oratebooks.com for a paperback or Kindle version of this book. That's ORATE books.com. To learn more about us and for past episodes, please visit camp.fm. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.